Alright, you guys, welcome back to episode 2 of On the Hook, my Dead by Daylight podcast. Today we are covering topics such as Chapter 18 changes, the Bloodlust Experiment, perks and the current state of perks in the game at the minute, and we're going to end with the viewers' questions. As always, the timestamp is on the screen, guys, if you wanted to shift to any part of the topics. Stay tuned and hope you enjoyed the podcast. What we'll do to start off with, again, if you just quickly introduce yourself, BetaNurse, if you want to tell us a bit more about yourself for the introduction, and the other guys, if you just say your name, and then we can get started with the questions. Does that sound all right?
All right, so my name is Josh, but I go by BetaNurse. I've been a Twitch streamer probably since, realistically, since Mixer, before they took Mixer down, and I just used to use Mixer to record videos for YouTube. But Twitch VODs kind of messed that up because my VODs aren't exactly the best frame rate because of my streaming and stuff and the internet. But basically, I stream quite a bit. I play a lot of Killer, a lot of Survivor. I've played for probably about a year and a half now of the game, and I guess that's pretty much the intro to me. Like Jay said, I met him when I first started, and he's been like an incredibly supportive, like really like great person to have met at the start of everything, just for like reaching out with some like stuff that I was going through and whatnot, involving like starting up and whatnot too. So yeah, that's just kind of the intro to how I got here. I pretty much only play DVD and only stream DVD, even though it gets frustrating, but yeah, that's a little introduction to me.
All right, and obviously I'll be on the call again, and we've got CptSalty, Potatolegion, and Tatariu. Have I said that right again? I keep...
Just call me Tat.
Tat, right. It's one of them names I think I'm going to always struggle to get right. Tat.
Everybody has trouble with it. Don't worry.
Really happy we're just saying Tat. Right, okay guys, first things first, I thought we'd talk about the changes that have happened this week in regards to the Chapter 18. So just wanted your thoughts on that. Just to quickly summarise, we've had Victor now able to interact with lockers, we've got a recall facility, we've got the cooldown for the charge for the pounce, that's been, or it's going to be changed as well. So what do you guys think about all that? It was funny because we spoke about it last week as well, and it sounds like they might have listened. We'll take a credit for it. We'll say, you know what, guys, they listened to what we said on the podcast and implemented it. But what do you guys think of the changes?
Yeah, they're a good step in the right direction. I mean, I think the 45-second timer on the recall mechanic is a little too long. I think you should be able to recall him at least after maybe 15 seconds, because 45 seconds without power is pretty awful. You know, you got no map mobility, no chase tool, and you have to rely on the survivor to either take off Victor or you wait 45 seconds and recall him. Other than that, though, I think the rest of the changes to Victor are really nice. You know, you can now interact with lockers to some capacity. You're going to be able to lock them in there, basically. Too sure how long that's going to last for. If it's like 10 seconds, it's going to be useless. But if it's more like, you know, 15, 20, 25 seconds, that's going to be really nice. You can maybe work with that. So, I don't know. I think it's a good step, though. Glad to see it.
Yeah, just to piggyback off that, I can kind of agree. My biggest issue with like some of the things behavior does, because I really love the Blight, and I loved what they did with the Blight. Blight has like become my favorite killer. And then it's like looking at the twins, and it's like something as simple as the locker issue, where it's like it feels like what everyone else says in the community, where they just don't play their own game. Because like one game, you find out how like detrimental the locker thing is to the power of the twins. I do like the changes. I think like Tat said, it's like a step in the right direction. And if it's only like a 10-second thing for the locker thing, it's going to be pretty brutal, because Charlotte trying to get like across the map in that amount of time. And then I'm sure they don't want Iron Maiden to interact well with it either. Like if Iron Maiden just becomes an instant use on Charlotte too, and everyone starts complaining about that. Like it's a weird medium to try to find, I feel like, with her power. And it's just such a high risk thing where like you don't get too rewarded for just the base kit of the killer in some circumstances. I like the pounce changes and the exit gate changes, but I agree the 45-second timer is absolutely brutal. I'm not even sure how good that'll end up being, but I guess we'll see.
I agree on everything that was said so far, but I have to also say that it's a step in the right direction. Like the thing with the locker interaction with Victor should be in the game when the PTB launched. That should always be like a basic thing, because it's just a hard counter to him. And also, agree on the thing that Charlotte is like just a 150% movement speed killer, and if she's not sleeping right next to Victor, and when she comes out of the cooldown, can immediately interact with the locker, I don't think the change might be that much, would not make the killer that much better than it's now. It's still kind of situational.
Yeah, I mean, I think the guys have covered literally everything I may have said. I agree that the 45 seconds is too long, and especially with good teams where a confident survivor can hold Victor for that 45 seconds, especially in Objects of Obsession, it doesn't really matter that she can see your aura. So if everyone sort of took turns and held him for 45 seconds apiece, you're going to be without your power for a very, very long time. So I agree the cooldown needs to be reduced massively for her to be viable. But I'm happy about the locker changes and the pounce changes. Definitely, that was a step in the right direction. But there's still a bit more tweaking and work to do with this killer.
Problem I have is, how can they not think about that kidnapping thing when they release the character? Like, they know how the Dead by Daylight community likes to exploit stuff. How can't they think about it when they release the killer, that maybe they don't even want to get rid of the baby? You know, it's like, how can't they think about that before they do it? It's like they have to band-aid fix it because they realize, oh, we have a community that likes to exploit things. Like hook tags, for example, we talked about it last time. It's like people want to exploit the shit out of this game, and the devs have to think about how people can exploit something like that. And that it made into PDP, like a test version with that huge issue, is for me, it's like just a big question mark in my head. It's like, how can't they think about that before they even like make a test version of it?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I thought, because what I done, I started playing games and trying to figure out, if I didn't have any powers for 45 seconds, what difference could it make? And 45 seconds is such a long time in the game. So I was the same. When I first seen it, I thought, well, at least they've brought back, you know, some sort of recall mechanic, because it was obvious that they had to do that. But yeah, 45 seconds does seem to be a bit too long. One thing I forgot to mention as well was, obviously they changed the kill, you know, when the doorway's being blocked. I know Tatariu brought it up last week, didn't you, in regards to you could still fall out the door when you had Victor attached to you. So it is little things like that hopefully it's a step in the right direction. But yeah, it's stuff that maybe should have been noticed beforehand.
I still don't think that you should play Victor as a killer. I think you should play it as an information thing. Like, you send him to the location, then you let him sit there, and every time the survivor goes in the circle around Victor, you get the notification of this killer instinct stuff. So you know where people. That's how Scott June played it in the first week on the PTB. And that's how I would play the killer, because I like information. I'm a sucker for information. I use discordance, whispers, all the information perks on my killers. And this killer has like basically Legion's power without people having to be injured, which is pretty damn strong.
I was gonna say, yeah, I feel like they took a very linear like route with this, where it's like, okay, incapacitated, they can't leave the exit gate, but then they just didn't test it. And it's like, okay, Victor can latch on to you, and then there's lockers you can jump in. I think it's just overall frustrating, yeah, in my opinion, because I think what they were thinking is like, okay, we have this killer. If he injures everybody's injured, Victor can just snowball and just destroy everyone. But I just like, healing is just so good in the game and so easy to do. There's no punishment for it. Like, at least like when Legion was originally released, which was like god awful, but you know, there's slowdown. Like there's no real anything that Victor applies or anything that keeps people injured to actually snowball with them. So I think they just balanced the killer around this idea that every person is going to be able to snowball with them, and under the perfect conditions that's going to happen, which is kind of frustrating.
Yeah, and how hard it is to actually hit the pounds. You know, it's like they buffed his speed, but also the pound is still far too hard to hit. Like, a good survivor that is like dodging Huntress headshot left and right, he will dodge Victor like 24/7, and you will never get value with the pounds at all.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've just discussed, and before we went on air, actually, it's out a week on Tuesday, I believe, the 1st of December, so it's going to be interesting to see, one, the changes that have took place, but two, how many do, because if you've noticed, guys, on the the chapter update, it was like these are tentative. We don't know when these will actually be changed. So we know, for example, the animation for the locker, that's not going to be out upon release. They've already said that. It's something that they're going to try to work on. It's going to be interesting to see how much of these changes come in when the chapter actually comes out. On that note then, okay, so this weekend we've had the Bloodlust Experiment. So what are your experiences so far then, guys? Do we need Bloodlust?
Yes,
We do.
one.
I don't think we need Bloodlust level 2 and 3. I think Bloodlust level 1 is perfectly fine though, because Bloodlust tends to teach killers bad habits to just run around the palette when it's super unsafe, or even safe. I saw a video on Twitter of a Felix running a Ghostface on the two unsafe cars in front of Badham for 2 minutes, and the Ghostface was taking wide turns. They were trying to Bloodlust when it wasn't even active, and I think that's because Bloodlust has taught that killer, it's okay to basically suck at the game. And that's not me trying to attack the person because it's a casual party game, right? But I feel Bloodlust is teaching killers bad habits, and now that we don't have Bloodlust for this weekend, we're seeing a lot of, I guess the result of that is a lot of killers struggling. I've been
Exactly.
having perfectly normal games and everything's been fine, so
Oh, I did not like now the survivors get more cocky because they know they can do something that the killer can't catch up to. Like now the God loop in Asylum, Protoss Pen Asylum is basically impossible for you because you need Bloodlust to at least catch up to the survivor after they vault the window. The Ormond is cancer now. Coldwind Farm, like Thompson House, you can't take any loop there because they are all really safe, and you even like what I mentioned last week is that the jungle gyms in Coldwind Farm are all see-through, so you have to run the normal path because you can't really mind game with the see-through things. And now with Bloodlust, you will never catch up to the survivor if he does a perfect pathing. You will never catch up, never. And that's like an issue. And yeah, I agree with Bloodlust 1 being important for the game because some loops are just, you can't do it without at least one Bloodlust 1 to catch up to the survivor. Bloodlust 2 and 3 are just people that don't want to break chase and then overcommit to chases anyway. So they are not needed, but Bloodlust 1 certainly is needed.
yeah, absolutely, because there's a lot of smaller tiles in the game or longer tiles as well that just you need Bloodlust to have a good chance of catching up. But yeah, Bloodlust 2 and 3 feels awful to go up against because there's nothing you can do. The killer, even if they're worse than you, are eventually going to catch you. It just feels really unfair.
Yeah, I have to agree with those points. I think Bloodlust 1 is okay, but the second you're getting to 2 and 3, it's a bit unfair on the survivor. And honestly, if you're chasing the survivor for that long, you should have probably given up chase anyway. I feel like they're trying to take a step in the right direction. They need to fix their loops before they implement this change fully, because currently, as you guys said, some loops are just absolutely broken, and the only way to counter it is with Bloodlust or the killer's power. Me personally, I haven't felt any change to the games. Currently, as you guys are aware, and we spoke about this before we went live, ranking is currently broken, so we're going against really inexperienced survivors, so Bloodlust isn't necessary at all. And I actually done the challenge of just running Beast of Prey with Legion, and I didn't feel any challenge whatsoever. Until they fix the loops, and until they really consider balancing it out, Bloodlust needs to remain in game for now, or at least just Bloodlust 1. That's my opinion on the matter.
Yeah, I did a similar thing. I played the Ghostface like an M1 killer, like never using his power. And like basically before you had to loop everything and you needed Bloodlust. And I realized if I just slug people more often, like I realized if I chase too far, chase too long, and then have to break up, I can just like end the chase, down a survivor, search for another one, and slugging is far more important than it was ever before. If you don't have Bloodlust in the game, you need to slug because you will lose so much time in chases. If you get a chase done, you can get someone down, you have to slug. That's basically what I experienced. I also experienced a knockout pick build which is pretty much awful because you place the trap on the head, then you let them slug, and when the survivors do the gens, the trap is activated, but they can't get rid of it before it is activated. So it's even more time they lose. So, and in my opinion, it's like if Bloodlust would not be in the game, slugging would be meta. At least Bloodlust 1.
Josh, what do you think?
So I've been playing a lot on both sides. The biggest thing for me, I pretty much agree. Bloodlust 1 is absolutely fine. I feel like there's a lot of killers that without their power, or like, for example, like a trapper only has so many traps, and without his power, it's some loops. You can't just keep putting traps down. Like you put a trap down, they leave the tile. There's situations I feel like where you need that for those types of killers. Like, and the argument that I've seen some people say is, well, it keeps killers like Nurse and Spirit stronger. And I'm like, they're going to be stronger regardless. Like, I don't like Bloodlust 2 or 3, even though Bloodlust is like pretty easy to get rid of with like pallet stuns or breaks. And if they get to 45 seconds, which is Bloodlust 3, and a chase total, like you've kind of done your job, especially if they just get one hit. So I don't really mind it 2 and 3 as much. I have said before though that I would like them to only have Bloodlust 1. As far as playing killer, there's been like, I know the Auto Haven Mazarof's like choking point or whatever they call it with the 3-gen setup. That map is absolutely brutal without Bloodlust. That is the amount of windows and just anything with a midsection like that, like Suffocation Pit as well, that has all these like jungle gyms in the middle or like big structures. You pretty much like, I forget who said it. One of y'all said it, but it's like you have to play it, kind of like the Disturbed Ward, where you just have to like vault the window, and it's like, okay, now you're just M1 killer, no Bloodlust. And there's times where it feels absolutely brutal. Like if you're a killer that doesn't have counterplay or anything on loops, like playing Deathslinger felt better than playing like anybody else, just because of that anti-loop ability that he has, to where he doesn't really have to rely on Bloodlust. And that was kind of my experience, where Bloodlust just feels like a necessity at tier 1, because even though it can teach bad habits, I feel like this game, the looping in this game is never going to be completely balanced. And I feel like Bloodlust 1's a fine balance, especially if, I don't know if you've like seen the original Blood Notes, like patch notes, but Bloodlust 3 used to be like 1.2 bonus meters per second instead of 0.6. So like it has been reduced. So like, but I would really just rather see Bloodlust 1 stay, and they can get rid of 2 and 3 as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because obviously it's good when you get a conversation like this going, because you pick up little bits on what everyone said. But I think the same. I do agree. I don't think you should get rid of Bloodlust 1, but definitely 2 and 3. I'm probably a little bit more experienced in it, but when I'm playing killer, I can't remember ever getting Bloodlust 2 or 3. The only time, there was one occasion where literally there was one survivor. I'd been whooped off his team, and he was just looting me, and his team were following him, trying to stop me from getting a hit. I could only rely on just getting that one death, so the game had gone. And that was when I just kept looping him around. That was going with Bloodlust 2, Bloodlust 3, but that was the only time I've ever used it to try to get that. And I do think it does enforce bad habits. One of the things that you always see when you're watching videos and watching games is, I think the difference between a good killer and a killer who's just learning is always, for me, it's always about knowing when to cut chase or not. And I think Bloodlust sort of rewards them for keep chasing. Once they've got that chase, the objectives might be finished, and it's a case of them camping for that one kill because of the damage is already done. So I can understand why Bloodlust is seen as actually enforcing bad habits. But this weekend, and again we were saying just before we went on air, was all I've found when I've been playing Survivors is really, really horrible killers in regards to tunneling. I mean, one of the killers as well had so many hours and was a Twitch streamer who I played, and he literally put me in the corner the first time he got me, and that was it. It was game over. Every time I got saved, he was back over, same position, and I was just like, this is awful. You know, this is no wonder we all run the small PP build, you know, for perks. But so I'm not sure actually what they're going to get out of this experiment, what sort of results they'll see. Now, obviously, for me, it's only a small sample. But anyone else experience bad games this weekend in regards to it?
No, but I've seen them. Like, there's one big YouTuber / streamer that always overchases, in my opinion, and never learns from that, and always blames the game for losing. And people basically this person had a debate a few years ago with another streamer over Bloodlust 3 that is necessary for the game. And back then in the debate was also like the points mentioned were like totally not true. And like people always tell them in the streams to actually review games, adapt to changes, don't chase too far. You don't have to prove skill to anything. It's just like if you lose the game, it's your fault because you overchased. And for people like that speak for the killer community, that often have good ideas, it's something that is like it's making an illusion of how killers actually be playing. Like facing the whole that you need the movement speed to catch up to some loops is like bullshit. You just leave them. Some loops are so broken, if you try to loop them, it's your own fault. Yeah, like it's like Asylum main building. If you try to chase that and the survivor knows how to do it, you lose 5 gens in the process.
Yeah, I feel like it's like a bad thing to like not have it though too, because it's like, yeah, like you have to know when to give up chase, but it's also like a double negative where like if you just kind of like avoid like a shack area that leads into like a really strong like jungle gym into another safe pallet, like as it gets to late game, and if there's any gens that happen to be nearby, all it takes is like a sprint burst into like the disturbed ward, or a sprint burst into like the Haddonfield house, or like I've noticed like survivors a lot of times, if there's a really safe area they feel like they have, like it's me included, like if I can do gens that are close to the disturbed ward, and I'm about to get a heartbeat, and it's like I get an extra, I just need like 10 seconds before they even get near me, and I'm already in the like disturbed ward. Like Badham's kind of that way. Like when you're going into the preschool, it just feels so bad, and the preschool is just so close to a lot of the gens that I feel like in a lot of situations, survivors can get away with doing like the unsafe gen, or I mean not the unsafe, the super safe gens, like the ones in the corners that you just never want to check because it wastes your time. And they can afford to set up like a risky 3-gen because the structures just get really strong. And then, I mean, obviously that kind of tests your like stuff as a killer and whatnot. That's not to say that, everything's unfair or something, but there's just so many like really long loops and just really crazy RNG on some tiles that just feel really bad for a lot of killers, especially Huntress when like Bloodlust resets with every hatchet she throws. And another example, obviously Billy, who if he uses this chainsaw, whether he gets a hit or not, Bloodlust resets. So I think it's really frustrating for a lot of killers and a lot of players when it gets taken away. Sometimes it's just not even relying on it. It's just sometimes you just need it for just how like weird their map design is in certain situations, especially having to break walls. I hate breaking walls.
Like something infinite, like suffocation pit, the whole fucking window thing there. It's like you can just stop chasing that, because even with Bloodlust, it's like not worth it at all. Like it's some structures are still so broken. Some people that know what they do just leave the chase and go to somewhere else. And the thing is, like Suffocation Pit is pretty small map. It's a choke point map, but it's like pretty easy to get to the main building, to the Suffocation Pit, and to abuse that loop is just bad design in the game, to be honest. And a lot of survivors actually get carried by this loop. They can't loop on normal structures. I outmind game in the jungle gyms and stuff like that. But then they get distance because Bloodlust was not active, and then they get to the Suffocation Pit, and I was like, yeah, fuck this, I leave the chase. And this feeling of you have to realize that you lost, that's a defeat for you, the chase, that you can get them later. That's what a lot of killers struggle. Even killers that play like 2, 4, 5k hours, they still don't do it. They refuse to give survivors the win by over chasing a lot. I see that a lot in Fungus videos when he loops a doctor for 3-4 gens for 5 minutes because killers don't want to give up on the first chase, because everyone says the first down is the most important. So people are tunnel vision on those first down. If they lose the game because of that, they don't care, because everyone says in the first 5 minutes, the only thing you have to do is like get down as fast as possible, which is not even true. And I think that's why something like this happens.
Yeah, I think as well, when I'm conscious you mentioned Fungus there, I think one thing that I used to do, and I don't know about you guys, you're all player killers, one thing I used to do when I was a bit experienced in the game was go, actually, I've chased this guy for so long that I'm pretty much committed to him now. I can hear the gens going. And I find that when you watch Fungoose's videos, it seems like that's the type of killers he's playing, where they've went, you know what, this guy has took me for a ride. Gens have popped left, right and centre. I'm just going to make sure that this guy dies. Yeah, it's interesting because, as I say, I mean, we spoke about the loops last week, and I certainly think that the loops have got better. So implemented some changes to them. You know, they've took quite a few of the infinites out. I know, conscious of what you're saying, Joshua, that obviously in regards to some of them you have to think and break the breakable walls and things like that. I think overall, obviously, it'd be interesting to see what happens to this Bloodlust experiment. If I'm sticking my neck on the line, that's what I think will happen. I think they'll leave Bloodlust 1, but I think they'll take out Bloodlust 2 and 3. But we'll see. We might never ever hear of it ever again. It might just be one of those things that just falls by the wayside. So last week, guys, we touched upon perks and we said we'd probably spend all day talking about perks. So we haven't got all day. However, let's talk about perks. What do you think overall about the state of the perks in the game?
It's stale for a long time, especially for survivors.
It's what? Sorry, I missed that, Captain Salty.
It's stale for a long time, especially for survivors.
Okay.
I actually think it's stale for both because it's just meta, and killers have the meta now as well. Ruin Undying every game, Ruin Undying, and then survivors just run Unbreakable, Decisive Strike, Borrowed Time. You know, they need to encourage survivors and killers to run different types of perks, and there's too many perks in the game that serve literally absolutely no purpose and are pointless, and they need to be reworked. There's not enough options, and the meta will always stick because it's the easy way to win games, and a lot of people take this game very competitively. So until they change it, it's just going to be meta perks all round.
Problem I have with that's like it's hard for the developer to actually bring out release new perks that actually eclipse the old perks. Like, you will never do the mistake again and create the next D-Strike, even though with Power Struggle they kind of have a situational D-Strike, but that was a topic from the last episode. But like, they have to be really careful in designing perks. They don't want to they don't want to create a new broken perk. And it's like, it's hard for them to make good perks that actually work, like have a niche, but are really good in this niche. Like Thanatophobia for a long time. They said they liked Thanatophobia and players said it's shit. But people don't realize how to use it. Like, if you play a killer that is considered like focusing on chasing a lot, then Thanatophobia is bad. But if you're injuring a lot of people and stopping them from healing and stuff like that, then Thanatophobia can easily win you the game if you juggle like a madman. The thing is, they have a lot of perks that have like niche usages and are pretty good in these niches. Like, for example, barbecue and chili, and you combine that with Iron Maiden to, if they go into lockers, you actually still get the exposed status. But it's such a niche thing that it's like not even worth it. The problem is, like, what do you do? Like, you can't release more perks that are powerful because it will just like replace the old perks because they're even more broken than the old perks.
Yeah, I want to say ever since original Metal of Man, they've been very careful with releasing new perks into the game, which is why, you know, for like the last year, we've had pretty boring perks where they're either completely useless or so niche it doesn't even matter. And then ever since the release of, I want to say Descend Beyond, maybe if you want to count Soul Guard from Silent Hill, but Descend Beyond was the first time we've actually got good perks again for both sides. And it was really nice to see that. But I think they're being really careful to the point where it just makes most perks in the game utterly boring to use.
Inner Strength came out too, right? Inner Strength was another good one that they made after, what's it called? After Metal Man, I think that was the only other good one, that one and Soul Guard, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Head On.
What's that?
Head On, dude. I love the perk.
That's cool. The perk is, they need more pun perks like that. Like, really, it's annoying for a killer if they have to deal with D-Strike and Head On, but it's like so fun.
And then they had that whole situation with Nemesis when that first released on the PTB, where it caused Deep Wound to continue to tick down like back in the good old days of 2018 Legion. Oh my god. That was really abusable. So then they had to make Deep Wound effectively useless.
I'm gonna let you guys in on the best perk right now, and I don't care what anyone thinks. Any means necessary is the best damn perk, and I love it right now. That has been my perk for like the last 2 weeks since or however long since the 60-second cooldown. I have lifted so many safe, unsafe pallets, and it feels so bad for the killer. I've actually really enjoyed that perk. That's been the only thing that's keeping me playing Survivor is any means necessary has value because people just don't break pallets that much, especially at unsafe pallets. So you get to kind of use those again, which is really nice.
Yeah, I think if you tie that in with, is it life? And then you dumb tech the killer and life away, they don't break the pallet. And I've done that so many times where I've picked up the same pallet like 3 or 4 times. I agree. It's another fun perk that the game needs to incorporate more of. But we are getting a new fun perk with the new Survivors locker perk. So they are kind of doing it, but that's a sort of step in the direction they should be going. And I'd love to see some fun killer perks as well. But top of my head, I can't think of any.
The problem is like they won't be like used at all. Like even if they buff bad perks, which they did when they nerfed Pyramid Head for the first time. Like he got nerfed 2 times, which is I don't understand, but like whatever. Like they buffed a lot of perks that no one uses, and still no one uses them. Like it's just why should you use situational perks that are fun and you like them over perks like these Decisive Strike, Unbreakable, BT, or Ruin, Barbecue and Chili, Filling Tremors. Like those things are like, why should you go for fun perks like Cruel Limits or something like that over anything else? Like, okay, they are bad in a general thing, but you can build around it and make it actually useful. But you have to do you have to invest so much resources to actually make that work, which makes it not possible or not worth it to run this perk. Like people tag in Tinkerer now because it's the best perk in the game. Yeah, it's like it's boring, and then you face the same builds over and over. If you don't want to face small PP survivor builds, then stop using the small PP killer build with Hex, Undying, Ruin, Tinkerer, and Barbecue and Chili, because that's the same thing just for killers. It's like, and also I think Ruin Undying makes killer lazy. Like they don't care for totems anymore because survivors have to deal with them 5 times in the match. If they're unlucky. If you're unlucky, they cleanse Undying first and then cleanse and find Ruin afterwards and say, but it's like, I remember the times when you had Ruin plus Hex Full of the Hunt to protect your totems, and every time they started the totem to cleanse the totem, you actually beeline towards the totem and stopped survivors from doing it. Like it was not, oh, I just chased the whole time, because if I got a notification on my totem, I moved there and kicked the survivor's ass, because don't you dare touch my bones, you know? And that's not happening anymore. People don't want to kick gens anymore because it's time loss. It's like, it just depends on how do you play a killer. If you just chase around the map, like on the edge of the map, and you're chasing one survivor that didn't do anything the whole game and just looped you for like multiple minutes, it's like, okay, it's your idea. But people that actually play killer more controlling, like more micromanaging, like listening to every notification they can get, like using perks like Discordance to know when someone is on the gens trying to gen rush, that you can like actually know what is happening, and then you use the information to make your next move and stuff like that. It's like if you actually care for the totems and you actually try to protect them, and you go to the gens and try to hold them, because I see it a lot of times when they actually give a fuck about the gen and then just chase around the map like without doing anything. Like the rest of the survivor team is not punished enough, so they stay on gens. So what actually do you accomplish from that? It's like, and that's why I like this like Hex, Undying and Ruin combo, because it's just stupid. Like killers don't have to look for anything else anymore. They can just focus on chasing, because if the survivors go off the gens, Ruin will regress the gen, and they can't cleanse Ruin because they have to cleanse Undying first, which is stupid.
Okay, that's a good point actually, because this is one of the things I've got wrote down. Now, my thought on Ruin Undying, so I'm going to ask you guys for your opinions as well. I don't like the combination. Now, that just falls with my playstyle. If I have the totems on it's one more thing for me to worry about. So I generally, and I know that's possibly not how you play it when you're that, you just put them out there and hope for the best. But I don't really like relying on luck either. So I don't like, if you watch some of my older videos, I do say I never used Ruin because with my luck, when I did put it on, it would literally just break within seconds, and then I'm down to 3 perks. Now with Undying and Ruin, I'm noticing all the big YouTubers are using it. You know, Otstava, True Talent. They're putting it on the killers quite a lot. And I'm thinking, like what CptSalty just said there, is it a lazy way of playing? For me personally, I won't go over the perks that I like because that's one of the questions I'll ask you guys in a minute. But I think there's much stronger perks out there. But the simple question is, guys, what do you think about Ruin Undying combo?
The only killer I use Ruin and Undying on at the same time is Blight. Other than that, I use Surge, Pop, Corrupt, sometimes no regression at all because I'm bold. That's literally the only killer. I hate Ruin and Undying as a survivor. I find it very boring because most of the time I do play solo queue, but when I do Swift, we steamroll. We get all the totems very, very quickly because we're on comms. Solo queue, Ruin Undying is the most atrocious thing in this game.
Yeah, we mentioned it in the last episode where I said like it's nightmare for solo queue survivors because you can't expect it. Survivor team that doesn't know each other and doesn't know what the rest of the team is doing to find 5 totems to not lose the game. You know, it's like you can't expect that. And that's the thing with the issues in the games. Like the killers get pushed towards a level where they can handle something that is not even normal or the standard of the game anymore. Like the killers usually were released in the mindset of having 4 players, all solo, all not knowing each other, and all having to play together to kinda get out of there. So killers were scary because no one knew the game and no one had communication. And that's how the whole game was designed around. Like I remember the times when 2018, I think when Spirit came out, people played Haunted Grounds to protect Ruin. But they didn't do it because they also checked on totems all the time, like every 20 to 25 seconds they checked on the totems because they knew Ruin is such a bullshit perk for the survivors. They will search for the totems. And myself, I never played Ruin because it's just like a perk that doesn't do anything for me because I'm a gen protector build killer. So I play everything what I do as a killer. I play gen protection and end game. And in my opinion, it's like I always play a balanced build. Like I have information, I have a chase perk, I have a late game perk and something for end game, and the gen protection perk. So I know when they start to try do gens, I can interrupt them. It's not an aggressive playstyle. It's more like a more control-y, let them do whatever they want, but I let them do where I want them to do it, so they free gen themselves.
Yeah,
and,
I think that's pretty much fits with my playstyle as well. So I like to be in control of it, and it, like I said, as soon as I see if I have totems, that becomes suddenly another objective for me to protect that totem as well. Like you said, I always run Pop Goes the Weasel. So I'm talking about killers who always run Hex and Dying and Ruin. For me, if most of my videos you'll see me have Thrilling and Pop Goes the Weasel on. Discordance is another one as well. So it's all about, like what you said there, CptSalty, it's all about the control that I have. Whereas I feel when I don't have them on, or if I have Hex Undying and Ruin on, I don't have that. I've lost that control because the survivors are out there trying to take away that power from me. So very good point in what you made there. But as I say, I can relate to that because I feel that my playstyle is quite the same. Joshua or Potato, what do you think about?
I think the reason everyone's using it is because obviously it's the best perk combo in the game for killers. You haven't got to kick gens. Totems are easily defendable. You get a free aura read for anyone that goes past a Dole totem. And a lot of the time you get to get free information when survivors just run past the Dole because gens tend to spawn near them sometimes. There is no alternative solution right now for defending your hexes. Ruin, 9 times out of 10 from my experience, when I spawn in a game, Ruin will spawn in the most stupidest location ever, and it'll be cleansed within the first few seconds. So there needs to be something. I think Undying is a bit too broken. The fact that you can get really lucky and get it cleansed like 3 times is just kind of ridiculous and does pull survivors away from the objective. And obviously, if they're not holding on to gens, Ruin is going to absolutely destroy them. It just feels like it buys you enough time, kind of like how old Ruin did at the start. And again, it's not something I use on every killer. Like on Legion, I probably won't really run it anymore. On killers that need more time to set up or defend areas like Hag or Trapper, I'll probably run it. And on stealth killers as well, so that I can sneak up on people and push them off gens for free. I understand why everyone's using it. And as you said, people like Starver, who's trying to go for like 50 win challenges, it's totally understandable why he's running those perks right now, because it's going to guarantee him a high success rate of winning. Yeah, until there's some other meta, it's going to be sticking around. So, and I agree, for solo queue Survivor, it's absolutely disgusting. I mean, I touch a gen when I start just to see if there's Ruin, and immediately my brain goes, there's definitely Undying. So I'm going around trying to cleanse 5 totems. And I don't want to bring perks like Detective's Hunch or a map because they're boring. I don't want to spend my game running around doing totems. It's not a fun objective. But someone's got to do it. Otherwise, the game is going to be absolutely disgusting. So I would love to see some sort of change to either Ruin or Undying to prevent this disgusting combo. I think Undying is great, and it could be great for other hexes as well. Maybe Ruin needs to change. I'm not sure. But something needs to be done about that little synergy between those 2 perks, for sure.
Killers need to understand that they don't need Ruin. Like, there are plenty of ways to prevent survivors from doing objectives. Like, Sloppy Butcher, they have to heal longer. Survivors want to heal. If they don't want to heal, they are disadvantaged, because if you find them again, you can down them easily. Knockout, if you get the survivor down, you can just let them slug and they can't find him. In solo queue, it's disgusting. You have Pop Goes the Weasel. If you chase someone and hook someone, you can kick the next generator. You will have Oppression, which I'm like really hyped for, because this perk sounds great, which is like basically a Surge plus Overcharge on an 80-second cooldown, which kind of sounds pretty damn good. And yeah, you have Surge. What I mentioned is like you have so many things to actually slow down the game. And if you combine that with information perks like Discordance or Tinkerer, you know when survivors touching your gens, or when a gen is so far gone that it's critical to actually go and disturb them from stopping them from doing it. And to have these moments where you actually know what the survivors are doing and not doing is pretty much the best thing in the game. And if you combine those things and you micromanage a bit more of your knowledge, you don't need Ruin. I never needed Ruin. Old Ruin was far too good, because the killer didn't need to do anything to prevent that from to make survivors not do the gens, because even if they hit great skill checks, they didn't get like any progress on the time. So you get at least 80 seconds to chase, which other people use to chase. I used the time to actually check on all the gens and then made sure that they didn't touch it. So when I first tested it out a bit with Ruin, I always thought it's like it gives you a lot of time to do the stuff that you should do as a killer, which is preventing survivors from doing gens. That's the primary objective that killers should do. And if you do that long enough, survivors will get cocky or like desperate because they have to do gens to get out. That's the only way they can get out. And if they can't finish gens, like they have to do gens. They try to bait you away so the teammates can sit on gens. And if a killer controls the map, like draws the game long, like Old Freddy did, it was awful. Like games took forever against Old Freddy if he could manage to control the world, because really Old Freddy, if all 4 people were asleep, you could not wake each other up. You had to fail a skill check to wake yourself up. So you purposely fucked up a skill check on a gen, for example, to wake yourself up, which buys you a lot of more time. And I always like those playstyle of like, only they can't do gens, and I just have to wait a bit so they get desperate, and then I can get my easy kills. And that's how I farm a lot of blood points and actually 4K a lot in my games, because I play like a killer. Like I observe things, know where they are, and then interrupt what they're doing. And if you play like this, it's like more of a strategic way. A lot of more games will you will win a lot of more games.
Yeah, I think it comes down, like you said, it comes down to different play styles. Joshua, do you want to give your opinions? Hex, Undying, and Ruin. Do you like it?
I think the biggest problem with Hex, Undying, and Ruin, there's like 3 big problems. The first one is, especially when it comes to choosing to run it, is base gen regression when you kick it is just absolutely useless. And then the second, like, I have an issue with the aura reading. Like, I think aura reading definitely needs to be gone. I really don't find Ruin and Undying as bad together. I think the real culprit that kind of gives every killer map pressure that shouldn't have map pressure is Tinkerer, because that 70% progress giving you that notification allows killers that don't have high mobility to know exactly where to go. And I remember when they first changed Tinkerer and they changed Billy. I played Billy for like 20 games or so, and I just only played Billy. And I ran Ruin and Tinkerer. And just Ruin and Tinkerer alone, because, you know, obviously there was no Undying and people didn't really care to do totems. Just Ruin and Tinkerer alone was just giving me a lot of value, especially on someone like Billy. And obviously it wasn't going to do it with other killers. But I think for the problem is that tracking that is just based on gen completion instead of like discordance, where you have to have a condition of like a number of people on a gen. As far as like it making killers lazy and stuff, I can like partially agree with that. I think the other argument for that though is like, especially with old Ruin, is like you're at the start of a match, you have no pressure whatsoever. Everyone is able to do whatever they want until you get that chase and force a survivor to have to go for a save or something, right? And I feel like with that, you kind of needed that type of slowdown just to keep people off of gens. And you're playing 1 versus 4. You're playing against 16 perks usually, unless someone's memeing. So you're playing against 16 perks. So I was really okay with a perk that kind of allows you not to have to do anything other than, you know, maybe defend a totem or something. I really don't think it's a bad idea to force survivors off of like gens and doing alternative objectives. I think games can go by really fast if not. And I think like the argument with like sloppy and stuff that I don't really like is like we're getting so many more healing perks that mean absolutely or that work so strong against stuff like sloppy. And now that Thana's gone, like Thana was already really bad, but now that it doesn't even affect healing, like you can run Dying Light and sloppy, but by the time Dying Light starts making a difference, you're winning the game. Like if you're getting 4 to 6 hooks, you're probably already winning. And if it's actually affecting the game, you should be winning anyway. But it's like, I feel like just with releasing things like Inner Strength, giving We're Gonna Live Forever 100% on the ground, even if you don't see that perk much or often or anything, but like we'll make it Desperate Measures. It's like, there's just no real reason not to heal. It's just so consistent and so quick that killers that rely on that slowdown alternative just don't get the full use out of it. Because really, even staying injured, like they might be 1 hit later, but if they're willing to stay injured, they're probably a pretty decent survivor, and that just comes into a whole nother like variable of they're probably just gonna run the loop, and then they might have adrenaline. Like there's just so many factors that I'm okay with some of those things of like having those kind of semi-crutchy perks, but I do think that Undying definitely does need like a nerf in some way. I wouldn't mind seeing maybe 1 or 2 tokens, like if it gets destroyed, it can replace your Ruin once or something like that, or replace your totem once, something like that, maybe just to balance it out to where you're not forced to stay on every totem, because some of the new maps have horrific totem spawns on the survivor side where it's under a tree in the log in the forest of like the Wizard of Oz or something, and you have to spend 30 days trying to find it. So that's just kind of my opinion on it.
But for that, they have to do something against the problem why perks like Undying Ruin are used. It's like because Survive Your Friends exists. And if you are coordinated in a team and you sit on gens and you hammer that through, it's like, and they never leave the gen, it's like, it's GG. And so in solo queue, oftentimes it's like everyone for themselves. And in the end, if they all can get out, they work together. But in the 80% of the match, you are alone. And you have to perform on your own. You have to be decent in loops. You have to do the gens when others are looping the killer. And for that thing, it's like you can't expect them to cleanse 5 totems. Same with Noed. You can't expect them to find all the bones without running maps or detective hunt or something like that, because there is no. In Survive Your Friends, you have like a dedicated totem jockey that's just searching the totems and destroys them with maps or like detective hunt or something like that. You have 1 dedicated looper, and you have 2 guys that are brand new parts and toolboxes and just hammering through the jets. You don't have that in solo queue, because in solo queue it's not even clear if you get like 3 blandettes or like even one mech with a flashlight that is golden chases that tries to loop the killer. You don't have those setups that you have in Survival Friends. So a perk combination with Undying Ruin is actually pretty stupid for if they want to push the game towards a state where it should have been for a long time, because before they added Survival Friends, the game was fine. Survival Friends should have been a custom mode. It's not. And before they did that, I don't want them to nerf Undying or something like that, because people that want to use it have to use it sometimes. And people that don't want to use it, don't use it anyway. So,
well, it's interesting you should say that. It just made me think of another question, actually. So, I mean, it's conscious because obviously you can say Hex Undying will be good against solo queues, not so good against Survivor Friends. I've noticed CptSalty said it would be good against Survivor Friends. Do you think, I mean, I'm probably going to drift off and probably just a short answer here. So do you think you should have some indicator to let you know you're playing against Survivor Friends in the game?
oh yeah.
I mean, that could be very easily abused on killer's side, where you could just keep dodging lobbies over
agree.
and over again until you get an easy match. I think you should be able to see Survive with Friends after the game is done. That way you can't just continuously lobby dodge, because nobody likes waiting in queues longer than they have to. It would probably kill the game, if I'm being honest, with what everyone has to say about Survive with Friends. And when I play with my friends, we already wait pretty long for matches at night, so I don't want to wait upwards of 15 minutes just to have a killer lobby dodge every time. That'd be really boring.
Yeah, Tats hit the nail on the coffin there. It's a big no, in my opinion. People dodge too much as it is already. I just put YouTube in my name and I get like 5-6 dodges every time I play Survivor just because of that. So I don't want killers to have another excuse to dodge. I would be happy with it if killers had no alternative and had to stay in the game, but they will probably DC, or you might accidentally join a killer game and need to leave for whatever reason. So yeah, I think end game notification would be nice to have, perhaps, but again, it doesn't really matter at that point, does it? Because you've already played the game.
Exactly. And it should be like, you should be like, if you think you are mentally prepared for like bullying, then you can, okay, let's do this. But if you're not mentally prepared to be bullied and you just want to chill a bit and have a nice game with like against solo queue survivors, which even if they are good, they can pretty much still have a chance to win. Like if they're really organized and stuff like that, and they all really good players on their own, it's still like an uphill battle, like in equal terms. Of course, the killer is like often favored, but it's even if on the survivors map, like solo queue survivors can easily win if they do better than the killer. So it's a skill check in this opinion, in this moment. So, but I don't think that like Survival Friends should be in the game as a ranking option. It should be custom, and people abuse the matchmaking system by just queuing up with like lower people from lower ranks to make the killer they face lower rank, because they want noob survivors, like lower rank survivors, to have the fun, and the killer has to get bullied because red rank survivor pair up with 20s, and they don't do it intentionally, but they just screw up everything that the killer does, like the whole experience of killers, and it should not be in a game.
As far as Survival Friends, I don't really mind it. Like, it's frustrating when you get that like 1% like incredibly strong, like they bully you, and then if you show that you're kind of decent, they just bang out the gens, and they know the loops, they know the mind games, but you don't really run into that as often. As far as the lobby thing, it would make knockout like probably meta if a killer is just looking for only solo queue players, and that might be a little annoying and a little brutal. So I wouldn't really want that. I think crossplay has kind of made some things obvious, whether people are like survive with friends in some areas. So like, and I don't really get too many DCs, but this would be like an obvious, tell as to whether or not they are. So I'm probably against it. Because it would just allow killers to change their builds a little bit too much, I feel like, as well. Like, if you're playing solo, like, and everybody else is solo, like, you're going to get hit with knockout. You're not going to have fun. You're not going to have a good... It's going to be knockout, ruin, undying, and they're not even going to bring a fourth perk. It's just going to be that rough. It's just not... It might be a little too brutal, but then again, for, like, really experienced solo, people that solo queue generally, like, know to do the gens and stuff, usually, in my experience, like... If I get people that are in groups, they just kind of like screw around, farm each other off hooks and stuff, and I'm the one that's doing like 3-4 gens. But then there's those games where it's like, you could tell that they know what they're doing. So like I feel like that just gives the killer too much leeway to change things, dodge, and all that stuff and whatnot, especially for like Moris and stuff too. Like, but that's my opinion on it.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. It was just something, obviously, when we mentioned, I thought, oh, I wonder if that could be something that people thought about. I agree with Tat on it. I think that I'd like to know at the end, because sometimes, to be honest with you, I know, Captain Salt, you've made your position clear on Survivor Friends. Some of my best killer games have come against Survivor Friends, and I get more satisfaction out of winning that game than what I do against solos. If I think back to some of the games that really got the adrenaline pump and it was tough games, really hard work, even sometimes I'll get 2 kills and I'll be satisfied with that because I knew I was up against a 4-man Survivor Friends, all red ranks, and I'm like, this. I mean, we asked that last week, what counts as a win to you? And as long as I don't de-pip, I'm happy with that. But yeah, it'd be nice to know after, because I'm sick of the amount of times where I've had such a tough game and I'm like, SWF, and usually the reply is, what does that mean? You know, Survivor Friends and things like that. So it'd be nice to have it at the end. Just going back onto perks then. So again, just in, I was going to say 1-word answer, but you'll need to give 2 words. What's your favourite killer perk and what's your favourite survivor perk? So I'll start off with myself. I'll go through. My favourite killer perk would be Thrill and Tremors. My favourite survivor perk is Dead Hard when it works. So I'll pass it on to you guys now.
Favorite killer perk. It's funny because while I was muted, I was typing up an entire list. I have like 20 perks on screen now that I gotta choose 2. I'm gonna say probably for killer, Infectious Fright, because I play a lot of Nurse and it's my bread and butter. I can't play without Infectious. It's just so good. And then for Survivor, I'm gonna say Soul Guard. It's actually really useful in the situations that it comes into play, and you're really able to really punish a killer who's slugging, especially like in this meta where we have Ruin and Undying. I grin every single time I touch a gen I see Ruin, because I'm like, I get to stand up. Like, it's fun. I like it.
Come back to me. I'm still thinking.
All right. Well, Joshua, I'm presuming you've already said any means necessary as a survivor, I'm going to guess.
Oh, yeah. That is my perk. I start every game out. I go to my teammate, make him come to me, throw the shack pallet down, pick it back up. Killer comes to me, and then eventually later in the game, something happens. I don't know. Any means necessary is the best perk in the game. Don't at me. I don't care about borrowed time or exhaustion perks. Any means necessary is the greatest perk in the game. Nothing's better than giving splinters more to a killer that I've hit already once with the same pallet, and he still doesn't break it. Especially spirits and nurses who don't break pallets. It's just like it's a fun little thing. It's gimmicky, and I'm always going to stand by any means necessary. Killer-wise, damn, I just had it in my head too, and I think I just lost it. Hold up, killer. What was I gonna say? It was a good perk, guys. It was a good perk. No, oh, made me lose it. Go to Potato. Ask Potato.
All right, we'll come back to you.
No, don't do this.
Captain Salty. Captain Salty. We'll go to Captain Salty if you want to still have a think, Potato.
Okay. I'm a sucker for information. So in Survivor is awareness, or this perk when the killer kicks pallets or kicks the generator, when you can see the aura. And is it awareness? I don't know how it's called in English because my game is in German, but hey. And for killer, it's discordance by far. Yeah. Back to you, Potato.
Oh God. Okay.
Okay.
I'm actually going to go with Monitor and Abuse. Reason being is when I used to play a lot of Myers, I love the fact that I have no tear radius, especially with Dead Rabbit, and it can still be very good on other killers like Hag, Spirit. Sneaking up on survivors and making them jump scare might be one of the funniest things I enjoy doing in Dead by Daylight, especially if it's a streamer and I get to see their reaction. It's honestly the best thing ever. Survivor, I am in tie between Objects of Obsession and Head On. I do enjoy seeing the killer's aura, and the most fun part about playing Survivor is being chased. As much as I love holding down M1, being chased is way more fun. So whenever I bring Object, I always seem to have a fun game. And Head On as well. It's always fun to head on the killer. But if I had to pick the 2, I'd say Object. It's probably my favorite.
All right, I remembered it. I had to look up the perk list. My absolute favorite killer perk is obviously Beast of Prey, which they just nerfed, which is really detrimental. It was overpowered. No, my actual favorite perk is Enduring. think enduring lets like any like even it feels really good like because the unsafe pallets where you need to get a stun to get to the next loop because or otherwise you're like gonna take a hit. Those pallets feel so good with enduring, and a lot of times like especially the survivors that like to just throw a pallet that might be like semi-safe unsafe, like the Batum car loops are generally semi-safe pallets if you run them. If you're a killer and you run them from the specific side, you can get a hit no matter what. But generally, like survivors that throw those down might just leave the tile immediately. And enduring, saving you that, and especially when I play Legion and get stunned, like last night I was playing Legion, and if I forgot how good enduring felt because I was being a killer meta gamer over here with Brew and Undying. I was running enduring with Spirit Fury, and I was trying to frenzy on an injured to catch up to an injured survivor, and he threw a pallet down, and it just immediately broke and stunned, and I got the down, and it was just such a nice feeling. I mean, my left testicle was tickling. It was really good. It's a good feeling.
Okay, so that was the end of the questions in regards to perks. However, we have got someone from the channel called Dusty David want me to ask you guys a question. So, what is the one thing you would change to DS and Noed if you could?
Oh, easy. The whole jumping in a locker for DS needs to go away. I don't think I should have to grab somebody out of a locker and eat a DS Drake. It's so frustrating. And yeah, okay, that's one thing. I won't ramble on. And Noed, I mean, I have never ever really come across the problem with Noed. Really, I don't think Noed needs to be changed. It's an endgame collapse thing. You can cleanse it. It doesn't need changing, in my opinion. I think it's fine. It gives the killer a second chance. It could be very annoying at low ranks, but at high ranks, I don't see it being an issue.
Yeah, with Decisive, I just make the perk deactivate whenever you hop on a generator. Like, you're not being tunneled if you're doing gens. And then Noed, I don't really have a big problem with Noed. I would probably remove the speed boost, but I don't know. I don't know what you would add to it to go between tiers. Oh, maybe you should just remove perk tiers. That'd be great. But yeah, no, that's what I'd change.
I would change D-Strike to affect every action that is not like just running away and not getting hit for 60 seconds. Because like if they go on the totem or gen or in a locker, like doing anything that is not running away from the killer, that should not be active. Like it's an anti-tunneling perk. They can change the perk to trigger multiple times, and it should deactivate when someone else is getting hooked or when they touch a gen. Or like something else where they can have to interact with something. Because running away from a killer, not getting fined for 1 minute means you're just running away. You don't do anything. You don't touch a totem, you don't touch a gen, you don't go into a locker near the killer so he can grab you out of it. It should deactivate whenever you do an action. And when another survivor gets hooked, because if you chase for like 10 seconds, another survivor, you down them really fast and then hook them, you are not tunneling because you effectively ignored the guy that got off hook. So it's not tunneling. So by definition, it can be a really powerful perk if it's only against tunneling. And you can make it that it activates multiple times a game, but also deactivates whenever you do an action inside. And for Noed, I think that a totem is just a problem. It should be something like when the exit gates are powered, you get that permanently. Like you should not be able to cleanse it because, in my opinion, the BM after the exit gates are powered, like people don't try to get out. They just try to farm a bit. Like people that get hooked, that get caught by a killer before the exit gates are opened, they died and people don't leave them behind and then BM you in the exit gate. That should stop. And that's why it should be unstoppable and basically shorter endgame collapse for everyone. Or they just remove or just half the time of endgame collapse because it's far too long. And it should be like this whole stop the BM shit and let the survivors actually go out of the fucking gate so you can enter the next game. It should just be this like, if you stay here, you die. And they can't do anything about it. Like no one escapes death. Haha. If you cleanse the totem, they can escape easily. And that's not the point of it. So, yeah.
As far as Noeb, I wouldn't mind if they just got rid of it altogether. I don't really care for it. A lot of times it might reward you with a hook or two, but you're generally probably going to be proxying the hook and lose points on your emblem. I don't really like the BMing doesn't really bother me as much anymore. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't really think NOED's too much of like a problem in general, but I just don't think it's like I don't like perks that rely on the end game as much, or like those. I don't know. It's hard to explain because like on the Survivor side, you have the second chance, a lot of second chance perks. So I guess NOED's like a second chance. I'm a little iffy on it. For DS, I feel like the problem with DS is like it's kind of like the argument that people that I see the most is like, well, just don't tunnel. But I don't think people understand as killer like how rough it is. If you have to wait if you have to like try to play really fair, which is what I usually do. I usually try to avoid getting hit by DS. Dealing with 4 DSs in the end game is literal hell. It's just not fun. The jumping in a locker is just brutal. It rewards like just really just dumb plays, I guess. Like I agree, there should be some sort of like way if you interact with a gen or a locker, it's like you're not being tunneled. Like it comes back to the whole working. There's no incentive to heal a lot of times in the game, and that's kind of what DS also promotes. I think like just the overall power of DS is literally like if you're not running an obsession perk and you see one obsession in your lobby, you have to assume everyone has DS and play around it. If you're trying to play around it, because most people I don't think want to tunnel. Like obviously sometimes you have to tunnel down if you make a mistake or something, because your one mistake is going to give. Say you make a mistake for 10 that costs you like 10 seconds on one survivor. That's 10 seconds for 3 other survivors to continue doing what they're doing. Like, so like, I feel like that's kind of how it should be. It's very frustrating when you see how strong like DS is just from one person having the obsession logo and you're not running an obsession perk. It changes the game a lot. So I'd like to see them do something about it, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I mean, for me personally, I was sniggering to myself while you were talking there because I was just thinking about this game I had today. So for me personally, I would like DS to deactivate once the endgame collapses started. I had this right little toxic shit. He was toxic all the way through the game, and I downed him at the end. And to be honest, I was quite happy to leave him slugged, but his teammates were all around trying to get him. And so I hooked him, maybe the wrong thing to have done, and he got off, and it was like a dash to the exit door. I knew he had DS, and I knew as soon as that exit door was opened, there was no way, and we were literally racing alongside each other, trying, like, I was obviously a little bit behind, trying to stop him from getting that door, because I knew as soon as the doors opened, he was close enough then for that 1 minute to crawl out, get as close to as possibly as he can. So I personally would like that. And when I think about when DS has really wound me up, generally during the game, I don't mind it at all, because even when I jump in a locker, I just think, you know what, if the game's going well for me, I'll take him out. Because I use Thrill and Tremors, it's still a benefit for me to even eat that DS, because sometimes I'll be like, you know what, I need some information. I'll get you out a locker. I know the generators are going to block. However, you're going to jump off. It's fine. I'll still get the information off Thrilling. So I don't really mind it too much, but it is during the end game where I feel like it can be a bit abused. And when I say abused, sometimes I think to myself, you know what? Sometimes you've just got to applaud good play. But then is it good play? Is it very overpowered using the meta? I don't know. But that would be my opinion. Just as once the end game has happened, that's it. There's no DS no more. In regards to NOED, pretty much... it's very rarely I come across it. If I do, it's a take. So I think that'd probably be a bit too overpowered, Captain Salty, if it was just permanent on there. I see where you're coming from though, but I'm not too sure what I would change with that. I don't think it's much of a problem, whereas DS, it's something you come across quite a lot. But I do like all you guys' ideas in regards to if they start interacting with something else, because another favourite when I see it happening, it's not a favourite, I'm not happy when it happens, but they've just been unhooked of doing the trade, so you know you're going to get the friend on. You get the friend on the hook that's just unhooked his first friend. His first friend comes and you think, and don't grab, just hit him. And then the animation kicks in and then you know you're going to be eating that DS. That's, again, is that good play? Do we reward that? Is it just BM? I don't know. Anyway, guys, is there anything else you'd like to add about anything we've spoke about at all?
Yeah, but the SWF thing, it's like I had my best games against survival friends as well, but I want to be prepared for that. Like if I'm not mentally prepared to be bullied, I want to dodge it. And I don't dodge any lobby. Like I think, okay, I can handle that. I'm motivated to play killer now. But if I had like a few rough rounds, I don't want to face it anymore. Like I need some chilled games where I have a chance actually to play the game and not get bullied. You know, that's where I come from. I don't hate Survivor Friends, but I just hate it that you can't stop it because 80% of the fucking queue is Survivor Friends, because Solo Survivor is just so shitty that no one wants to play it. And that's the whole issue. And if they show you it's Survivor Friends and you can decide if you want to play it or if you don't want to play against them, it's like it should be fun. And facing against Survivor Friends and after you get bullied twice in a row, it's not fun anymore, you know. And that's what I wanted to add for this, because it might have like been confusing or something, or people like, oh, CptSalty, it's just salty about Survivor Friends. Like, it's still a bullshit idea and a stupid thing, but I want to be prepared. And if I want to face Survivor Friends, like I pick my best perks, my best killers and stuff like that. And if I get bullied like 2 times in a row by Survivor Friends and I see another Survivor Friends, I don't want to do this anymore. And then until I get normal game and stuff like that, sure, it's like waiting in a queue time for another year, but it's worth it.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. And what I'm going to put on the video, CptSalty, is a meme that I've seen. And it's like what people think Survivor Friends is and what it actually is. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but I'll put it on the video, so watch out for that. And I think that probably sums it up. When I play Survival Friends, you know, we automatically think they're very coordinated, they're doing this like as if you're playing the A team or something, and in reality you just, most of the time I'm just bumbling about, no idea what's going on, just trying my best to get a gem done, being absolutely useless at looping the killer, you know, running straight into them and things like that. So it's interesting, but as I say, I'll put that meme on the video so you'll get to see that. But if that's everything, guys, then I've kept you on a little bit longer than usual, but thanks for joining me, guys. Hopefully you can all join me again on next week's podcast.